Hey everyone, I am here to do a new review for my channel. I've decided to do reviews on Iyanla Fix My Life. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Iyanla, but she is just basically like everybody's free therapist on the OWN network. She has had a lot of great interviews, and I always watch her show and support her. So I figure, hey, why don't I come on here and provide some great commentary in my review of her most recent season. So, the episode I'll be starting on is episode 3 and 4 of her sixth season. This centers around the Mitchell brothers. I'll get into the details of who they are, but the title of these episodes were Crack Addiction, Abandonment, and Seven Broken Brothers. So it is split up into part 1 and part 2. I did miss part 1 last week, so I'll do a quick summary over it, and then I'll get into what happened on part 2 this week and my thoughts and opinions on that. But before we even dig into it, if this is your first time on this channel, I promise to provide you great commentary, so click that subscribe button, would you? And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for your support. Okay, now that all those public service announcements are done, let's dig right on in. Okay, so quick summary of the Mitchell brothers. The Mitchell brothers are, I believe there was 8 of them to begin with. They are basically stair-step kids. The youngest at this point, I believe, is around 28. The oldest may be like 34, 36. But they are all birthed from the same mother and father. They've had a very dysfunctional family at this point, should I say. All of the brothers are not seen on this show because one of them is actually deceased. He was murdered. And then the other one is actually in jail right now. So that in itself has caused a lot of chaos in their family. But basically, a brief summary of their upbringing. Their mother and father were not present in their lives. There was some crack addictions, specifically on the mother's side. I'm not sure. I don't remember if the father had anything to do with it or not. I'm assuming so. But I will get into those details later on in the review. But basically, they were all, some of them have just met each other later on in life, and then some of them have always been around each other. All of them have been in foster homes, in and out of foster homes, and they did not have good experiences there with being mistreated or abused in some type of way, whether it was verbally, physically, sexually. All of them have had their bad experiences in going in the system and having those things happen to them. As a result, of course, they have built up some resentment and hatred, not only for their parents, but for each other. Because when their parents stepped out of the picture, they basically looked at each other to have each other's backs. At the same time, they were all children, so they didn't quite know how to play the role of a father or a protector in any type of way. So they were all doing the best they could, but yet at the same time trying to look out for themselves. So at this point, they really don't fully understand each other. So they all pretty much have strained relationships with one another. The most recent strain in their brotherhood relationship would be the death of their one of their brothers. He was not the oldest, but he wasn't the youngest. He would have fallen somewhere there in the middle. But basically, just a few years back, he was murdered, and basically, it seemed like it was some type of setup and having to do with living a street life. One of the brothers wanted to blame the oldest brother, Michael Jr., but the other brothers kind of gave him slack because you can tell they don't exactly know what's wrong with him, but you can tell that he's different from the other brothers. He may have some type of disability or learning disability or some type of special needs condition that they are all aware of. They just don't know what it is. So they kind of let him pass as far as having big brother responsibilities, and those responsibilities go on the next oldest brother. I believe his name is Marcus. Miguel, I don't know. All of them have M names. But basically, that next oldest brother, he takes a lot of the responsibility for the things that his brothers have been through, for the way they've turned out in life, for their anger. He takes responsibility for not protecting them, and he just feels like he has like the weight of the world on his shoulders. And he was like, he thinks in his mind he was supposed to be that dad to them that his father wasn't. At the same time, he currently has three children of his own, yet he was willing to live a street life to go and protect his brothers, which could have left him deceased or behind bars, and that would have affected the lives of his kids. So it would have just been a continuous cycle. So I'll bring up the idea of that continuous cycle later on down the review. But basically, Iyanla, if you've watched any of her shows, she's like very like hard, straight to the point. She doesn't sugarcoat anything. If they'll say that their brother passed away, and she'll say no, he was murdered. Like she doesn't water down anything because she wants everybody to deal with like the naked truth to be able to accept it and get past it. So she did really well with that. Sometimes she's a little strong in the way that she relays the message to people or tries to pull emotions out of people. But you can tell that being that they were all like seven grown men, none of them would like blow up at her or get really mad at her. If anything, they would get mad at each other. But I think they had a level of respect for her because she listened a lot to understand each one of them individually and try to see between all the fluff and the emotions and see like, you know, what does this individual brother really need? What is he really trying to say? At the same time, she was tough on them, but then she also provided kind of like a motherly, like comforting feeling, like I'm here for you and I'm trying to help you. She even like a few of them broke down and gave her hugs, and it seemed like that's all they wanted and needed because they haven't had that growing up. So they're very respectful of her in that sense. A few of them have had to have like one-on-one conversations with her so that she could understand like the traumatic experiences they went through and why they act the way that they act. At the same time, they don't know what each other has gone through because they haven't always been in each other's lives because a few of them ran away from the foster home, some of them were split up. So they don't know each other's full experiences, so they butt heads a lot. They don't listen, and they're just angry. So basically, that she has to deal with that back and forth like the entire time. So they're like staying in this like really big house where they're having this like intervention in a sense. On the first day, I know that she had them put a like fort together outside or something. They argued about it for a bit, but then eventually they were able to come together with no instructions from her. All she told them to do is build a fort and put it together. And they were all able to build it and put it together. And her purpose in saying that was that like all you need is each other. Like this is broken apart and all it needs to come back together is for you guys to decide that you're going to make this work and bring it back together. And the participation or cooperation from all of you, patience and all. So I thought that was a really good activity. So towards the end of the first day, Iyanla actually had a quick sit down with the dad. She's very direct with him. Like, you have all of these boys, they are lost because of you. You weren't in their life. You need to make up for it. But he was also dealing with things like that happened to him as a child. So he's still in a child's mindset. So as a child that wasn't ready to have kids, he had kids and he wasn't basically like mentally or emotionally equipped to even be able to be a father to them, which is not an excuse, but it makes you understand this like cycle of life and how this just keeps happening. Okay, so she decides he will be a surprise guest for the second day. So the second day comes around. The brothers are still having like back and forth, like arguing back and forth. They call each other names, sometimes like derogatory slurs. Like they're just really hateful towards each other and they don't know how to communicate. I think the most effective game for them, well, actually, they all sat down at a table. Ayana was like, I will not have all this disrespect and like all these they were like pretending like they were gonna fight at one point. I don't think they were pretending. I think they wanted to fight each other, but she was like, "No, it's not going down here." So they ended up all sitting at a dinner table, and then she invited a guest to the table, and that guest was their dad. So when their dad walked in the room, their dad was like everybody just, you could tell they all kind of got a little uncomfortable. Like none of them seemed happy to see them. One of them looked like he wanted to cry, like they looked uneasy. It was really sad to watch, actually. So as I'm like watching this scene, they decide to do a Ayanla decides to do a game of bingo with them. And I guess like she's will pull a ball out of the wheel and like say whatever's on the ball. And if any of them have experienced that emotion or feeling or state of mind in their life, then like they would raise their hand, and like she might choose one of them to speak on it. So one of them was like, she pulled out a ball that said abandonment. All of them pretty much raised their hand. I think she pulled out another ball that said like lonely or lost or something like that, or left out. And then it's interesting, the oldest brother actually raised his hand, Michael Jr. Now remember, this is the brother that like they know that something is off with him. They just don't know what it is. So it was really interesting because he said like he's always felt like the black sheep, like left out, lost, and that nobody pays him any attention in their family. And all the other brothers said that they were aware that he was treated that way because they know that he's treated that way because they treat him that way, but they didn't realize that he was aware of it. So basically, Iyanla, she agreed, like she's watched that happen this entire time, and she has been the only one concerned about his feelings or asked about his feelings this entire time. um it's really sad that they don't know what his like mental condition is, or his special needs condition. They don't know what it is. And hopefully from him being on this television show, somebody that actually does have that expertise, or went to school for that, or some type of doctor in a sense, they can help like to like diagnose him, or like give him services to a place where like he can like lead a more normal life, to like help him to understand his condition, and his brothers as well. Because basically there's something that is different about him, but he hasn't been diagnosed, and so nobody else knows what it is, so they don't know how to treat him accordingly. The way that they treat him, they just ignore him instead, or they just handicap him in a way and say, oh, he can't handle it, oh, just excuse him. But that makes him feel left out. That doesn't make him feel special. They think that they're like taking weight off of him, when really they're just kind of like pushing him out of the family. So I thought that that was like a really good like point to bring to the light. So that was good. Another emotion that she pulled out was like shame or guilt. And that is when the second oldest brother, I believe his name is Marcus, but don't quote me, he stands up. And he's the one that's been like feisty and like aggressive this whole time and ready to fight his brothers, but he also like he takes like the responsibility for a lot that his dad probably should have taken the responsibility for. So he actually stands up and he like starts to like really express his emotions as to like why he feels like guilt about like the way that his brothers turned out, like the fact that his other brother is dead, the fact that like he didn't protect his brothers, the fact that he left them, the fact that he wasn't always there when they needed him, and just like for every little thing he like was like carrying all that weight. And while he's talking, it kind of looks like he's breaking down, and Iyanla gets behind him, and at some point two of his other brothers get behind him, and they're literally like holding his back, like to symbolize like, I got your back, like I know this is a lot for you to handle, and I'm going to help you carry this load. So I thought that was great. At one point when he was talking, the father, oh, he actually said he had guilt towards his father as well, for like not caring about him, or to reach out to him, or not caring for him at all, not caring about having a relationship with him, not caring to even understand him. Like like his true emotions were coming out, and his dad actually started breaking down, and at one point he wanted to get up and leave the room. Ayanla wouldn't allow him to do that because he's already done that in their lives. He's left a million times, so why leave again? You're here, so go through the process. So his dad actually gets up and goes to hug him, and Ayanla is like, ask him what he needs from you, ask him. So he asked him, and like this grown man is crying, and he's like, I just want real love, like that's all I want. And I think that's all that any of them want. And they want it to be permanent, because if he were to come to this show and simply go through this process, but then afterwards everything goes back to normal, I think that like some of them would still carry that same hurt. Some of them may be able to get past it because they can understand it more, but I think that I really do hope that this is a permanent change. But it's just the beginning. So that was good. That was like a minor breakthrough for that brother because he was able to get all of that off his chest. Meanwhile, Ayanla meets up with the mother. The mother is like very cold. Like the father looks like there's some emotions in there and he cares. He's not telling the full story at all because this man had stair step kids, back to back kids with a woman for 7 years. And his explanation as to why she wasn't around is because she was in rehab in California or something. And it's like, dude, she wasn't in rehab for 7 years. And you literally had a kid with her every single year. So, like, why after the first 2 or 3 kids, when this woman wasn't around, you just still continue to have kids? And none of them are twins. Like, she just was pregnant every year. So clearly, there's more to the story that you're not telling your sons for whatever reason, like the real truth. And that's what they're like yearning for right now. So they can just have some understanding as to what happened. Okay, so anyways, Ayanla meets with the mother. The mother is cold, like I said. She doesn't seem affected at all. While Ayanla is talking, she's like, okay, so what you want me to do about that? She's just like very just like I don't even know why she agreed to participate, to be honest. But she talks to her and she basically says like I wasn't around because I was doing drugs. That's what I was doing. Like I don't know what else to tell you. But actually I do have a daughter. So they have a half sister. The daughter is 38, so she's older than all the rest of them. She was like, so I've been trying to reach out to my daughter since she's my only daughter, so I can have some type of like bond with her. And I thought when she said that, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way because you want to reach out to your daughter to have a relationship with her simply because she's your only daughter. But you also have 7 sons as well that you should also have a relationship with. Just as much as like she's hurting, like they're hurting as well. So like even though you're a mother and it's a mother-son relationship, that's just as important as a mother-daughter relationship because they're missing that like feminine touch in their life and that like love from a mother, and that affects them as well. But whatever the case, she has her mind made up. She wanted to focus on the daughter. Well, the daughter comes into the picture. She comes on the show, and the daughter wants nothing to do with her mother. The daughter was actually raised by her mother's mother, so her grandma. She is very feisty, resentful as well. She is extremely resentful towards her brothers because she felt like her brothers had a better life than her. She felt like her mother cared about her brothers more because her mother just left her, but her mother went to Kansas City and was with her brothers. Whereas in all actuality, her brothers, like she did not actually spend time with them. The mother didn't spend time with them. The mother was just happened to be in the same city as them. But they had a lot of back and forth. She really, you can tell she has a strained relationship with her brothers because she has a lot of assumptions, but she's never like reached out to them to talk to them, whether her grandma would allow her to or whatever. But that is why there is a rift in their relationship because there was a break in their communication somewhere in there. We'll find out more on next week's episode because the brothers and the sister, they will have a back and forth with one another. But basically, it's really sad to watch how drug addiction, and then just like a broken home, a broken family, affected like the lives of so many. And then if they don't get this under control, it could ultimately affect their children as well. So I think it's great for shows like this to be out there, because I'm sure anybody watching this, like, you can identify with somebody in the show. And whether it's not personally, maybe you know somebody in your family that can identify with them, or just understanding people that come from a different background than your own, and understanding like their struggle and where their emotions may come from. So I really enjoyed this episode. I might have shed a few tears while I was watching it, but it was great. So if you haven't watched it, I definitely encourage you to. Next week will be part 3, and I will be tuned into that, giving my quick overall summary of that as well. So, as always, if you made it this far in the video and you're not a subscriber, you may as well subscribe. And like this video and comment. I love them all, and I will respond to your comments. So, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.